Morning. Oh, good afternoon. I appreciate everybody being here today. I am always amazed when we have these professional learning opportunities. You're here on a Saturday, right? So my name is Alberto Mares, and I am a board member of New Mexico NMAEYC. That you're here today is a big testament to your professionalism and your dedication to children. So really thank you for coming out. If you do not know about New Mexico NMAEYC, we are a membership organization. Consider becoming a member. It's your membership that helps us put together these types of learning events. Today's a great topic, STEM in the preschool classroom. And if you do become a member, you get some wonderful things. They are magazines on early childhood learning. We got a journal that talks all about the theory and research, and then we also have one that is about practical strategies. They're in the back. There's a lot of magazines out there. You're more than welcome to take a magazine. NMAEYC, which is the larger membership organization, is also they print out publications, so they also have their publications. This one just came out this year, Making and Tinkering with STEM. So if you're a member, you get all these wonderful benefits. For more information, just go to our website, New Mexico. It's nmaeyc.org. Okay, so thank you so much. I will hand it over to my colleague, Amy, and she will introduce herself and her STEMscopes.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be here in New Mexico. My name is Amy Kanellis. I am a STEM account manager for STEMscopes. Have anybody heard of STEMscopes before? No? A few nods? So what our company is about is we build curriculum by teachers for teachers. We build it from the ground up. We know what is something that's realistic to do in the classroom and things that are not realistic, as you know, right? There's been a lot of times you're told to do things, you're like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to do that. So one of the things that we're going to share with you is a curriculum for early childhood. But more than that, you're going to walk away today with really understanding what STEM is and a way to how you can implement that in your classroom, okay? And it's all research-based, and we're going to go through all of that. So my goal for you all today is by the time you walk out of the room, if you don't know what the acronym STEM stands for, you will by the end of the session. If you don't know a few ways to incorporate that in your classroom, you will by the time you leave this classroom. So those are my two goals for you. Is to really be able to walk out and say, okay, I know what STEM is. I hear STEM all the time. That's a big buzzword. But now I really know what it is, and I know I can tell somebody else what STEM is. But also ways of incorporating into your classroom. So those are my goals for you all today by the end of the day. So we also want to, my goal is that you have happy tummies. Is everybody's tummies happy? Everybody had their lunch? Please feel free throughout our training. We want to keep a very informal training. We want you to feel comfortable raising your hand or just shouting out, kind of letting us know, can you repeat that? Can you go back? Or I have a question about this, or something like that. We want to make sure that you all are feeling comfortable, and we're going to be working collaboratively today together to learn about STEM. Okay, so I live in El Paso, Texas, and so my area is El Paso, Texas, in the state of New Mexico. So back in March, I had a wonderful opportunity to come to your NMAEYC conference. How many of you all were there? Any of you all came to the conference, the Early Childhood Conference in March? Okay, so a few of you all. I highly recommend those of you who didn't have a chance to come this year, this March, please come next March. It is a great, there was like 900 teachers, I believe, or educators, early childhood educators in the state of New Mexico and other places that came and learned a lot about not just STEM, but about everything with our babies, right? From birth to second grade. I know in Texas it's up to second grade. I don't know, in New Mexico, what do they consider early to third grade? Okay. So I highly recommend it. Those conferences are amazing. You get a lot of information you take back and use for your own learning, but also to share with your fellow colleagues as well. So that's coming up the first or second week of March. So just kind of put that tentatively in your calendar. I'll be here in Albuquerque. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, I'm Bad J. Rankin, Executive Director of NMAEYC. It's actually this year going to be the third week.
Okay, the third week of March.
From the first week. So it's the 17th and 18th, or maybe 16th and 17th.
Okay.
But it'll be mid-March.
Okay, perfect. So please make a point to come, because that was my first opportunity to come to New Mexico in the early childhood world. I am early childhood certified. I have 17 years of experience in education. I was a second grade teacher. My internship was in a kindergarten classroom. I've been a coordinator, science coordinator for a couple of districts in the El Paso area, but I was also an early childhood facilitator. So being an early childhood facilitator, I worked with a lot of educators that always wanted to know, what can I do in my classroom? I need more ideas for centers, things like that. So that's what you're going to have some understanding with that today. But I wanted you to know that I'm not here. I'm not a typical salesperson. I am an educator. And that's why I work for this company, because they're advocates for teachers. It's built by teachers, for teachers. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I also want to introduce my colleague, Dr. Terry Tully. She is a guru of STEM and what STEM is, and she is a national speaker, not yet international, but maybe soon. But she's a national speaker. She goes to several conferences and speaks, and also just holds trainings around the nation. So we're very lucky to have her with us today to learn from her expertise. And so without any more, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her. She could give herself a little bit more, give you all a little bit more background on who she is. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate that. One of the things that I found is that when I was first stepping into a STEM field, I wasn't really sure how to define it. I wasn't really sure how to, if someone were to ask me what is STEM, I could not give them an answer that didn't take me all the way around the world to get there. So I'm going to challenge you. Can you, this room is divided up pretty evenly into 2s and 3s. Could you, to a shoulder partner or a group of 3, tell them what you think STEM is? Okay? For the next maybe 2 or 3 minutes. What do you think STEM is? Can you define it? Do you know what it is? How have you experienced it?
All right.
If you'd like to rearrange, so that you're back to the screen.
We don't have these. We don't have computers.
I think that it's important.
Where you come up with an idea
In your folder, we have provided a handout for you. The very first thing you're going to run into is a contact card. If you wouldn't mind, if you would fill that out, and we're going to have a drawing for 6 of these handy tablets they're made from recycled materials with a pen, and we'll have a drawing for those, okay? Does anyone need something to write with? What we'd like to do with this contact card, I just want to be honest with you up front. We want to provide for you a free trial of the product that Amy has, and it'd be an opportunity for you to see it on your own, at your own time, in your own leisure. And find out if it is actually something that may be of benefit to you, or may not. But it'll give you that opportunity to preview it.
Thank you.
It's rolling away.
Thank you.
So while you're doing that, I'll just give you a little bit about my background. I've been in education 35 years. I began as a 7th grade science teacher. I was a home economics major, and my specialty was becoming a registered dietitian, but life happened. And as a part of my home economics background, early childhood was one of those areas that fascinated me. So I took a concentration in it rather than registered dietitian because of the way my life situation was. My daughter was ill and I needed to be with her, and I couldn't be with the program the way they wanted me to. But that gave me an opportunity to be a mom with a purpose, because I wanted to ensure that my child was school ready and eventually college ready. And the background I received was so beneficial to me in then what I could do with not only with my daughter, but with my education. So I, with my husband in the Air Force, we ended up in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I was asked to be a part of the Redbird program. We had redbirds, bluebirds, and cardinals. And I was the Redbird teacher. And everything that I gained from my background and my experience in my home economics early childhood came into play. But I realized I didn't have enough. I didn't have enough information. So going back and getting my master's degree, I centered in early childhood as well as in elementary education, because I wanted to ensure that I could do the very best for the students that I had. I went on to finish my doctorate, and I got that in curriculum and instruction. Worked at the University of Texas Medical Branch, where I was the director of the STEM Center there. And we worked with STEM programs that were pre-K all the way up through high school, and found that there was a common misunderstanding of what is STEM. So my question for you was, what is STEM? I found out that most people didn't know what it was when I was riding on an elevator, and I had my STEM Center shirt on, and they said, "You work in the STEM transplant unit." And so I had that opportunity for 5 floors in the elevator to quickly explain what a STEM program actually is, only to find out that there really is not a large group of people who really understand what STEM is. So how many of you in your conversation said it's science, math, technology, and engineering? Okay, that's pretty much what the way people understand it. But why is it such a push in this country right now? Why the new funding for ESSA, why is a large portion of that designated to areas and campuses and school districts that are going to adopt a STEM-based program? Why is it so important?
Because we have lots of the technology in the future, and more every day. New technology, I think.
And so if I'm taking what you're saying, it's because we're a technology-driven society now. And if we're not familiar with how technology can be used as a tool, and our students are fluent in it, they might be left behind, which is a big aspect of it. What else is it?
It's proven through research and through studies in multiple venues that it works, and that the kids are engaging more and they're learning more, and the outcomes are really good.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that when STEM is brought into the education setting, student achievement goes up, and so does engagement.
That's exactly what I meant.
And that's exactly what the research says. You're right. Yes.
And they're our future. You know, there are,
In what way is it our future?
well, there are future engineers, our future scientists, and just getting them ready to take on those roles.
So are you expecting every child that graduates from high school to apply to college, put on a lab coat when they graduate, and be a lab technician? No? What are you thinking then?
Like just having them, like if a child's into GAC, like giving them the opportunity to understand what GAC is and having the stepping stones for them to further go into more science stuff later on in life. Supporting them in their interests.
I'm going to take a constructivist mode now. Do you know what that is? I'm sure as early childhood specialists, you all know what that is. A constructivist mode is where I'm not going to tell you exactly right. I'm not going to give you praise for correct answers. I'm going to accept all answers. And then you're going to remember your answers, and as more and more information is revealed, you're going to correct your perception so that in the end you will construct your knowledge rather than me telling you specifically what it is, okay? So it's a little frustrating because sometimes I'll say, you ask me a question and I'll turn around and say, so what do you think? Or you'll give me an answer and you want to be confirmed that it is the right answer because you were brave and spoke up in front of the group. But I'm going to thank you for speaking up in front of the group to lower your risk. But I want everyone then to check their understanding against your understanding. So in the end, we construct a meeting. Okay, so I just want you to know up front, I'm not being mean and I'm not playing games with you. It's just a one way of instruction, okay? So we know that STEM has a very strong base in math and science. We know from what the push is nationally that we have a science crisis. Are any of you old enough to remember the Sputnik satellite that the Russians launched? Some of us are. It was back in the late 50s, and the Soviet Union launched a satellite into space, and it circled the Earth, and you could see it sitting on your back porch at night, and it was a streak that was going across the sky. Well, the United States didn't have a satellite like that. We were behind in the space race. So President Kennedy challenged us to put a man in space and then put a man on the moon. And they said, though, that we did not have a group of graduates who could do that. So we needed to beef up our science education and our math education to get the country to the point that we were graduating engineers who could put us in that space program. And since that point, science has become a very important part of education. But accountability came in. And do you know what's happened in the public school setting? What do they evaluate students on? Reading and mathematics. But what has the data shown us about mathematics scores? Very low, very low. The average student who graduates from high school still has to take a remediation course in college before they can get any college credits in math because they're just not prepared. And guess what the research says? The research says for math, it's because it's taught as an algorithm. We know arithmetic, but we don't have computational thinking. We can't ask students to just reason through mathematics, use the logic in mathematics. And do you know where that begins? Preschool. Before preschool. Yeah. When they're at home and they're divvying up a piece of pizza, or they're passing out things, or sharing with brothers and sisters, or sharing, moms and dads are sharing with their children. And we talk about there's one for you and one for me. Do we have enough for everybody? That's mathematical thinking. And it's not used often enough in homes. So when children do get to school, it turns into a system of memorization. And you know with memorization, unless it's rehearsed, it can't be reused. So maybe there's something in this STEM thing, like you said, with research, that is going to change that. But the easiest ones for us to connect are math and science. So can you think in your science, in your preschool setting, is there ever a situation where you have combined math and science?
All the time.
Talk with the people next to you about what is one specific situation where you combined math and science.
Cooking.
We were studying the ocean science, and the kids wanted to know how big a dolphin was. So we measured out how big a dolphin was and marked it on the floor. And then we measured kids next to the dolphin. And then for a little bit, they went on a little side tangent of measuring everything. And then they started measuring with different materials, so not just with the measuring tape, but things to measure.
So what I'm hearing from some of your conversations already, this isn't anything new. You've done it all along. So what I'm going to ask you to do in the folder, you'll find a handout, the back page of the handout. Looks like this. If you'll tear it off from your handout, we're going to do something that I found. I was a middle school science teacher then for a major portion of my career, and I found these all over my classroom. You know what they are? What did you call it?
I call it a cootie
A cootie catcher. Until I found out what cooties were, so now I call it a fortune teller. So it needs to be square. So fold back and forth that last piece and tear it off. And you'll end up with something like this. So you join this part off, and you have this left. Yes.
There's people that are visiting through the web, so that way I can send them their
Yes, I sent you. I PowerPointed it. I mean, I emailed it to you. Oh, yeah. Yes, so those of you that are listening on your personal computers, if you would email Amy Kanellis, her email is
A Kanellis, so that's ACANALES @ Accelerate Learning. I'll spell it. Let's see if I can do it. Ready? Y'all test me, okay? ACCEL.
Your email is
ER. I'm trying. Oh, let me read it off. That'll be faster. So, because I'm trying to get everybody who's visiting with us online to get the packet to you. Oh, there we go.
Smart.
If you can please, if you're watching us via web, please email me. When I get your email, I will forward the packet to you so that way you can follow along with us, okay? I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. All right, so how many of you remember how to do this? You know, it's like riding a bike. Place the colored side down. Oh, first of all, we have to fold it in quarters because origami requires flexibility. So fold your paper in quarters, unfold it, fold it vertically, and unfold it. Fold it horizontally, and unfold it. So then when you open it up, you'll know where the center of the paper is. And those of you that have been in middle school just last year, you'll be the ones that'll help everybody else. Looks like most of this group, you just barely out of high school. Yeah. All right, so the way this works is you're going to put the colored side down and fold the corners into the center.
No. Either.
Okay, so mine looks like this. Okay, from there, then you're going to put the folded edges down and fold the corners into the center. So now you're going to fold the corners into the center.
Okay, like.
Flip it over. Yes. Right into the center. Flip this over. No, you have it right. Flip it over. And fold this corner into the center. Oh, you got it.
Oh, yeah. I taught the kindergartners how to do this last time.
You have it too.
What's next after
I
that?
had to make, so now what you do is you fold it, with the
Fold it down.
other way out.
Beautiful.
Yep, yep. Okay, and then you just open the flaps and put your fingers in.
So now to make it flexible, fold it in half and unfold it. Fold it in half again and unfold it. And you should be able to slide your fingers up under the colored areas and you'll have a fortune teller. You know what my fortune teller told me? Told me I was going to live on an island. I was going to marry a sailor. And I was going to have 6 kids. Well, to be honest, I live on Galveston Island, and my husband and I own a sailboat. We're gonna go to the BVI, the British Virgin Islands, in 2 years. We bought a really cheap, needing a lot of work boat, and we've been working on it for 5.5 years, and it's almost ready. But I only had one daughter. Okay, so what this actually represents is STEM. And you know how easy it is to include science and math, or science and engineering, or science and technology, or maybe math and engineering? It's easy to join together 2 interest areas, but can you actually create a system and a setting and an environment in your classroom where all 4 of those are always taken into account? So what we find is perhaps we need to actually define what is science. What is science? If you want to combine it, you have to know what it is. Yes.
It's a systematic way of looking at our world. I don't know.
Well, you had to do that constructivist thing.
I know.
So where did you get that? What made you think that way?
Because scientists follow the scientific process to figure out and to be able to reduplicate the results of whatever their topic of study is.
So it's a study about
Our planet or our Earth or human beings. It can be in all areas.
good start. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to grab something to write with and your cootie catcher, and you're going to stand up, and we're going to do what's called a protocol. I'm going to ask you to talk to 4 other people and find out what they think each one of these 4 areas are, and you're going to write it down, or just a couple of bullet points about what is each subject area. So the way we're going to do it, oh, that's very nice. You did a good job. You did it for me. Good teacher. All right, so I'm going to ask you to, it's called stand up, hand up, pair up. So you're going to stand up and put your hand up in the air, which says, I need someone to talk to. But before you do that, I want you to look deeply in the eyes of the people at your table. Would you recognize them again? No. You can't talk to them while you're standing up, because you're going to talk with them when you come back and sit down, okay? So you have to talk to anyone else in the room but the people who are sitting at your table. So you're gonna raise your hand, and when you see someone else with their hand up, you're gonna give them a high five. Say, hey, what do you think engineering is? So you and I are gonna talk about it, and we're gonna come up with something about it, write it down, and I'll say, thanks for sharing with me. And I'll put my hand back up and find somebody else to talk to, okay? Look at the clock over there, it's 12:30. So I'd like you to talk to 4 people by 12:40. That gives you 10 minutes, okay? And then at the end of that, when you have all 4 done, come and sit down, grab something to drink or eat, and come back down so at 12:40 we can start again, okay?
Okay.
Any questions about what you need to do? No. Let's get started. Everybody stands up and puts their hands up.
Sí.
Oiga, todas aquí las quedamos con
All right, Jen. So which one do you want to talk about? And also scale. That was a good one.
Think of between tech or using tools. Yo pienso queremos saber si el médico está aprobado por la ciencia. In modern day terms,
Ya le dije que si podemos trabajar juntas.
Thank you. I think science is very important. We can improve like something that we need to do. Asking questions curious about the world. Using facts to know each other. It's kind of like, the three of us can do it together. Thank you. Earlier was solving problems and design systems that work together. Algo comprobable. We're at the same table. I know. We're not trying to do it. Fine. Isabel. Yes, en español. Okay. The process and then at the very end, you get results of what you did. Okay. That's appropriate. Observing and observing, exploring different things. The study of animals and the earth. You need someone to talk to. We're on the same page. Find that technology. It's a way of life. It's a way of life. Everything is technology. Si quieres salir, Communication.
Find that way to technology is a way
So we're live. It's about safety
to be more easy. To know with technology, everything more easy.
How can you get that into real short?
Yeah. I don't know, engineering. Engineering is to find a way to solve problems, design system to work together. Solving problems, to design systems, design systems, okay, design systems to work together.
Yes. Grab some lemonade or
Yes. Is that science that helps to organize quantitatively, like the science that helps us to organize quantitativamente. I don't know how to translate.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
Okay.
Can I help you with one more? You got all 4 of them?
No, I need
Hablamos de construcciones. Algo de construcción, de
And so it's not only just what time isn't, but it's trying to think of time as one space that I have in order to make it. What we'll use is to quantify many things. Quantify so it's a way of associating quantities with those things that we need to understand how much of it is. But it's also all right, thank you. There are too many people at this table.
Yeah.
It's not for other people. It says in the social system. The reason
Thank you. Thank you.
Units of measure is so that fairness is there. So for the money you spend, the amount of money and effort you spend.
I know that todavía no
Pero bueno, ya vienen sus vacaciones.
And so this day we look for specific amazing art with kids in it.
And say, yes, this is how it's going to work. So there's a illusion of universe, but it is more because power.
Me dice una señora porque
Awesome, you guys, great spacing out your time. That was perfect. So as you're working as a group coming back to your table, did your answers seem similar or were your answers different than what others had gathered?
Yes.
Would you say any of your answers were wrong based on what your group pulled together?
Different facets of clarification as you're going through, you realize that there's something you either left off or re-emphasizes what you got, or you just have a better definition. One of them, when we were talking about math, the universal language, I mean, how better is there a way to express it than that?
And I appreciate the fact that you brought that up, because a lot of our students, when they get into schooling years, are looking for the right answer. Education has conditioned them to the point that there's one right answer. And if they don't have that answer on their paper, they're going to scratch it out and put whatever is the right answer. Where actually, if an education is truly educational, it does exactly what you said. It provides you lots of perspectives, lots of ways of looking at it, from lots of points of view. You may have a different experience than I have. You have a different experience than I do. And when we come together and put our perspectives together, it gives us such a broader view of the world. We're no longer narrow-minded and closed-minded. We're open to suggestions. And we're also open to what's called feedback. A lot of people misunderstand feedback to be criticism or correction. Where actually feedback is giving you another way to look at your thinking, and then you decide, am I going to adjust my thinking and my actions based on the input of others? And you have the choice whether you're going to accept and use that feedback or not. A different perspective when you start looking at it from a STEM perspective. I had an opportunity to write a book, and I interviewed close to 200 people about what is STEM. And I found that about 75% of them did what you did. And you said, well, it's math, science, engineering, and technology. But those 25% that I talked to gave me the greatest insights and the greatest perspective, just like you're getting now. And it shifted my view and it shifted my thinking as to what STEM and education really should be. So I want to share that with you right now. So what is science? And what is the science connection to STEM? I'd like to tell you that science is the study of systems. The study of systems. And how do we study systems? We study systems by observing them. So let's take an ecosystem. What do we do when we observe an ecosystem? Let's say the environment we have out here. What are some of the things that we observe when we think about the ecosystem here outside this room, this in Albuquerque, New Mexico?
Overcast.
If we look at the atmosphere, what's in the atmosphere? Is it cloudy? Is it clear? Is the sun shining? Is it raining? Is there wind? What else do we look at? So how do we look at those? How do we observe those? What are some of the things we do when we observe those?
How is blue? What we can see.
What we can see, but what are some of the things we do? The weather forecast is a perfect example of those things we do.
You chart the weather.
Wait, what is the weather?
You chart the weather every day. I don't know.
It's a combination of what things? What observations? Weather is a combination of what observations?
Visual sensory.
Cloudy, windy, the wind speed, the temperature,
Moisture.
the barometer, air pressure, the moisture, the relative humidity. I am from Galveston. It's regularly 75% in humidity. What is it here, like 5%? My clothes are always wet. My hair is always straight. I love this weather. Oh my gosh. Okay, so there are so many things that are observable and quantifiable that we begin to look for patterns in weather. So your children come in the morning and we talk about what's in the weather. We don't just say it's cloudy, because that's not the weather. The entirety of the weather. Is there a breeze today? Is it a strong breeze or a short breeze? Let's quantify it. Is it raining? Is it raining hard? Is it raining light? Is there moisture on the ground? Is it collecting or not collecting? What, do we change our clothing based on the effects of the weather? So science is making observations and being able to look at the patterns of those observations. Because it does no good for our students every day to come in and talk about what is today. What we want to do is, was it like yesterday? Can you make a prediction? Do you think it's going to be the same tomorrow? What makes you think it will be different tomorrow? What experience have you had that if it's raining today, it might not be raining tomorrow? Will you wear the same clothes today that you wore yesterday or tomorrow because of what you learn about the patterns? So science is about using observations and measurements to study systems looking for patterns. So I have a miniature dachshund who's extremely overweight. And the vet suggested we do two things. What do you think those two things are that the vet suggested?
Don't eat too much.
Don't feed it as much and have him exercise, right? So we watched those patterns. So as we decreased the amount of food we gave to our dog on a regular basis and increased the exercise, what would we predict would happen?
This way.
Do you think he did?
No, maybe not.
I was the person that had to take him for a walk, and it depended on my energy level. But I'm a treat giver. And so we did cut down his food supply, but he looked so hungry. He's not overly overweight, but it would be healthier to keep him. We'll have him longer. So what science is making observations, being able to put them into patterns, recognizable patterns, and then being able to make predictions from that. And a very important part of early childhood education is helping our children articulate what they're seeing and having them predict for you, not you providing the prediction, but watching those little wheels turn and asking them, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? Why do you think that's going to happen? And they may not be able to give you that answer to begin with, but if you ask that often enough, the pattern of you asking them, they will be prepared and they will start thinking about their responses.
Excuse me,
Yes.
like a science experiment, how the process to the end product?
Yes, yes. So one of the tools of a scientist is to do what's called a hypothesis. So we look at a system and we look at all the parts that make up the system. So if we're looking at, let's see, making cookies, what are all the parts that go into making cookies? So we have all the parts and we have the cookies. So each one of those parts we can adjust. And we can do what's called a hypothesis. We can say, well, if I leave the eggs out of this system, will I still have the system? Will I still have the same chocolate chip cookie? And so your students will begin to start doing that same thing. When I'm mixing together sand and water and I want to make a sandcastle, if there is no water in the sand, will I have a sandcastle? If I add a little bit of water, will I have a sandcastle? They begin to start that hypothesis testing, mess around with the variables, and see what the outcome's going to be. And eventually they'll begin to start making those predictions, which is what scientists do as well. Thanks for bringing that up. So talk with the person next to you how you use science in your classroom. How do you use science in your classroom? Do you get the students to the point of explaining? How much time do you have?
use the hypothesis. So even if I'm reading a book about the David book, it's not even David book. Even if I'm reading that David book, I will stop in the middle and say, "What's your hypothesis? Is he gonna choose to listen to his mom, or is he gonna play ball in the house, or and then sometimes."
Okay, so I can tell that you truly are incorporating science into your curriculum, into what you're doing with your students, because this conversation is really rich. You have a firm foundation in how observations and inquiries can happen in your classrooms. I believe that this group, really, you know what you're doing. This is amazing. The caliber that is in here, and I really want you to know that I recognize that, so thank you. So now, what is math? I'd like to share with you what I think math is. I think math is about patterns. Math is recognizing that a system is made up of lots of parts. So if you have an equation with all the parts on this side and they equal the system. Math actually explains systems. You can change the number of, let's say when we're making sand castles and we put 1 cup of sand and 2 cups of water, we have a sand castle. We've quantified what is in our system. We can count how many pieces of pizza and count how many people need pieces of pizza, and we can determine if there's enough pizza to go around for everybody in the room. It's our way of quantifying systems. Now we can adjust those systems by changing the variables in that system. We can scale things up larger. We can scale things down smaller through division and multiplication. We can, at that point, then get away from arithmetic and start talking mathematics. We can scale things larger. We can talk about we're going to provide supplies for our entire school, or we're going to provide supplies for one student, one family. And we use mathematics to determine if we can do that. It gives us a way to label quantities, quantities of time, quantities of volume, quantities of things, and be able to use those in a way that we think mathematically. We have calculators to do the arithmetic, but to know what to put into that calculator, you need to know the logic behind what it is you want to accomplish. And that's where patterns come in. We call those formulas. If we want to find out the area of this room, if we wanted to carpet it, there's a formula for that. And we could always use that exact same formula no matter what the size of the room is. That's the pattern. And so we ask our students to begin to use those patterns or formulas, because why try and figure that out every time? Mathematics is a language that has shortcuts in it. And those shortcuts are formulas, and they're very useful for us. So do you ever do that with your students? If you say, if we're going to in this group, how many things do you need? I need you to go get them so that everybody has 2. Without using the formula, they have an innate way of quantifying that to figure that out. Whether it means going back each time and getting that many and giving it to each one-to-one person, or if they are able to count and do that, each one of those is the use of mathematics and mathematical thinking. Yes?
Even the practice of doing family-style dining is at my center, we write on a whiteboard how much of each serving they can have of what. So they look up and see the number, and then they have to match their plate to what the sign says. And it's pretty awesome to watch them do it.
And they have that ability.
Yeah,
they have that innate
absolutely.
ability to do that. Thank you for sharing that. So the next question is, what's technology? This is going to surprise you. This morning I had a biscuit for breakfast, and I put strawberry preserves on my biscuit. The strawberry preserves were technology. Why?
Because it enhanced your biscuit.
Somewhat yes. Somewhat yes, they were dry. But why is it technology? There are two defining things that make something technology, and it's not plugging it in.
Used to solve a problem.
Excellent, yes. I'm sorry, that was not constructivist. Tell me more.
Anything can be a tool. When we're looking in early childhood classroom, our blocks, our ramps are all tools. It's the means by which you're going to get to your ends.
Yes, it has to solve a problem and or extend your ability. So the strawberry preserves, do you know what problem they solve besides by dry biscuit?
Sweet tooth.
Bacteria.
They prevented bacterial growth so that it would not rot?
Yeah.
Why would they ever invent a procedure that would do that?
To preserve raspberries.
Do you know what time of year strawberries become ripe? Usually in June, usually May and June. In May and June, there's an overabundance of strawberries. And you cannot eat them fresh, all of them, and not waste many of them. So back in the 1500s when preservation actually, the procedure to do that, it was because they needed food supplies in the winter when they did not have any. And they preserved them in the summer so that food supply was even throughout the year. Smoking foods using smoke from a fire, salting it, drying it, dehydrating it. All of those are means of preservation. So technology is a procedure that solves a problem or extends our abilities. So what about a screwdriver? Is it technology? What does it do?
Extends our ability.
Extends our ability to use leverage to push a screw into a piece of wood or metal. It gives us more strength. Is it toothbrush technology?
Yes.
Why?
Cleans our teeth.
It's a system.
Solves a problem.
It solves a problem.
It solves a problem. It was designed by humans to solve a problem. And it's made up of lots of parts. Some human had to design that, had to think about what parts am I going to have on a toothbrush. It used to be a twig, okay? But then the twig got yucky, all right? So they took a piece of wood and put bristles in it. And those bristles then were able to get into nooks and crannies they couldn't before. Well, then hog hair is kind of hard to, it tastes terrible. So what they did was eventually they used plastics, and they used different kinds of plastics. Well, then the handle got slippery, so they had to put ridges on the handle. And they had to put a thumb piece on the handle. Each one of those pieces that was put into that technology solved a problem. So are computers technology?
Yes.
What do they do? They don't save paper, and they don't save trees. I read an article that says to charge a computer device, it uses more coal or more wood to run the generator to create the electricity that recharges those. So we're actually using more trees and coal when we use electronics. So that's not the reason why it solves the problem. What does it do?
You can access a lot of knowledge instantly instead of going and looking in the card catalog and then going and finding all the books at the library.
And it brings every book that you want your children to be exposed to into your classroom.
Yeah.
And it allows you to communicate with people that you've never communicated with before. I mean, they have an opportunity to hear this where they would not have without the technology. So if we're going to use computers and we're going to use digital technology in our classrooms, you have to keep in mind it's going to extend our ability to do something we could not do before, or it's going to solve a problem. I find one of the things that technology does, if the book is written in English, it can be instantly translated into another language for the students. Look at the opportunities that it's providing to our students. Technology is valuable. So my last question, and I'm going to turn it over to Amy. What is engineering? What is engineering? I asked a 4-year-old one day what was engineering, and he said it's the man that runs the train.
That was my first thought when we talked.
I would say like finding a new way.
Okay.
Just of whatever, but
What engineers call that is innovation. It's been done one way, and now we're going to innovate and do it a new way. Have you heard of bioengineering, environmental engineering, genetic engineering? Those people don't build bridges. They don't build buildings. What are they doing? Say that louder so everybody hears you.
Building systems.
They're designing and building systems, what we call technology, that solve problems or extend our abilities. So doctors actually are biomedical engineers because they can go into the human body through medicine, drugs, and surgeries and change problems, solve problems. Okay? The children in your classroom are constantly looking for ways to solve social problems. There are social engineers who look at systems of social interaction and they say, if we had a different procedure, a different way we could get people to interact with each other, we could solve the problem of isolation or marginalization or lack of equity. So an engineer is a person who uses a systematic approach to change systems.
I was going to ask you, like NASA,
A space aeronautical engineer designs rocket ships to allow us to go into other worlds and be scientists in other worlds.
Can you repeat your definition again?
An engineer is a person who designs systems that solve problems or extend abilities. In all aspects of our lives. So, can this happen in a pre-K classroom? At some point in time, every one of your children are going to begin in imitative play. And they're going to start looking at systems and they're going to start moving things around and rearranging things and designing new systems. What would be wrong with calling them a future scientist, a future engineer? What problem are you trying to solve? What system are you setting up? What are you going to change to make this different? Setting that mindset now is really important for setting their mindsets for their futures. Comments, anybody? Questions? You're going to love what Amy's going to do next. Thank you, really, thank you.
Okay, so this part of the session, what we're going to do is we're going to get up and busy, and we're going to get our hands in STEM. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just take about a quick 2-minute, clean up your area. You don't need any of your handouts, so just put all that together, throw away your trash, and then be ready. We're going to have an imaginary dramatic play. How many of y'all have dramatic play in your classrooms or in your centers? Okay, great. So one big thing that kids love to do is they like to pretend that they're scientists. So as you see, I'm wearing a lab coat, right? But can we afford to have all the kids have a lab coat? Do any of you have any good ways? Think about this as you're throwing your stuff away. What are some things that you could bring in the classroom to help them with that dramatic play? Because they love to role play. Sure. So as you're throwing away your stuff, think about it, and then when we come back, we're going to share out. Okay?
You would give me these cards, and when you get back, we'll have a drawing for 3 of them.
Okay.
We'll have 3 at the end. Okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
I marked them all because I don't know.
I'm down the hall.
Thank you.
Out sort of close to where you came from, when you get to the lobby area, turn right.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Instead, I love your responses. Thank you.
Dr. Sally, do you want to bang?
Gracias. For that.
Is your French being affected by
Not
the
oppose that.
situation going on right now with the
I mean, that so.
No, she was one of my friends works for La Familia, una de las cosas no, I'm working training. And
Who is it?
About 30 more seconds.
Get some rest. Probably more, but
So, we're gonna give away 3. You have 3.
I just put them right up there.
All right, so here we are. I'm gonna pull one from the middle. And that is Sandra Castillo. Ooh. Yay. There you go. All right.
Everyone should go.
Ellen Light. Where's Ellen?
In the bottom.
Oh, okay, we'll draw another one. I'll draw one on this from the top.
Yeah, I'm.
Maria Isabel. Yay!
She work.
And one more. I'll draw it from the bottom because we're the first people to turn it in, right? Victoria Roundhouse.
Yay.
Yay!
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
And we'll have some more drawings at the very end, so those of you who haven't received something, you'll have a chance at the end. So my question to you as we were going, kind of cleaning up our space, kids love to play like they're somebody else, right? So if we're going in to have in our dramatic play, or even just in science time, even if you all have something like I'm putting in my, don't I look like a scientist now with my lab coat? It's amazing what a lab coat can do, right? Let me tell you something that's really funny. At another conference that I was at, I was dressed in my lab coat. They didn't see STEMscopes. So, and I'm, walking out, and they're like, "Ma'am, are you a doctor?" And I was like, "Yes, I am. But I'm running late, so I gotta go." So, it's just something like, wow, it's just something that, when kids try to put on different things, and that's why they love dramatic play, right? Because they love the role play. So I challenge you, if you're having trouble getting into the science, because remember we talked about, that was this morning, how we talked about how teachers sometimes are scared of science because they don't know a lot about the science, right? And they also don't want to get messy. They don't want their classroom to get messy, right? So those are 2 things, trying to get everything together. Those are really the 2 things that teachers, the reasons why they don't teach science. And why do I know that? Remember I told you I was an early childhood facilitator, a science coordinator, so I work with teachers all the time. And those are the 2 things when I say, why don't you do science in the classroom? What are your roadblocks? Number 1, I'm scared of it. And number 2, it's too much materials to get together, okay? So if you're struggling with, I really don't want to do science because I'm kind of scared of science, I challenge you to get a lab coat or something that looks like a lab coat, and you put on that coat and you're going to role play a science teacher, a STEM teacher, okay? So we talked about, as you were going through cleaning up your area, what are some ways that you can help your students get into that mode of being a scientist or an engineer?
Get an old shirt, cut it up, and make them fit the sleeves. Some of them maybe too, or get white shirts.
Yeah.
For family members that will fit the student.
Yeah, like old white shirts, like men's shirts. You go to a thrift store, get some old white shirts, and just leave it unbuttoned. You can make a logo for your classroom. You can pretend what company you work for. What laboratory place you're. So a lot of those little extra things that sometimes it just takes kind of getting dressed up to be ready to go somewhere, right? Ladies, now I know we have some gentlemen here, but ladies, if you're invited to go to a ball, right? Would you feel like you can walk in with jeans and really feel like you can stretch your stuff? No. What do? You role play, don't you? All of us women, we role play like Cinderella, been invited to this dance, right? And so we try to find the prettiest dress. Once we wear the prettiest dress, have our hair all done, we can go confidently saying, wow, we're going to this ball, going to this dance, right? It's silly. I know you're laughing about it, but really, when you are psyching yourself out into doing something that you might be scared of doing, that's all it takes, just role play, okay? So I just wanted to add that little thing about getting the kids interested in it, but as well as you all, because like I told you, sometimes it's us that hesitate, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to go, I'm going to take you through some of our centers first, and then later I'm going to show you a little bit about our curriculum, about navigating and all the other stuff, okay? So one of my favorite things to do is when I model lessons with classrooms, we have our kids at carpet time, right? We're sitting either in a chair or on the crisscross applesauce on the carpet, right? Or what are some other names? Oh, there was another one, crisscross applesauce, bubble in your mouth. Yeah. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
That's when you want them to do what? You want them to not use their mouth, right? Because if they have a bubble in their mouth, right? But then you don't want to keep it there for a long time, right? That's just for real quick, right? Okay, so one of the things that I would do is I would have them sitting at the carpet area, and we start talking about, did you know that you can use your body to tell a lot about what's going on in our world? We talked about what science is, right? And science is knowing about, finding patterns and systems in our world. What are some tools that we have in our body that help us learn about things in our world? Can somebody tell me one thing?
Your senses.
Yes, ma'am.
Our eyeballs.
Your eyeballs. What are our eyeballs used for? Okay, so it's one of the 5 senses. Okay, so now we know we have 5 senses. One is our eyeballs. What do we use our eyeballs? Think about so just think for a minute. This is, I'm modeling a strategy for our ELL students because sometimes they need to have that think time. Okay, they think to themselves. Why do we use our eyeballs? I'm gonna give you a few seconds to think. Turn to your shoulder partner and tell them in one sentence, how can we use our eyes to describe things, to get to know things? Okay, if you haven't shared yet, now it's the other person's time to share. If you haven't had that time to share your thoughts.
What is happening right now, and then what will happen if you change something.
Got my ball gown on, it's time to do science.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. So that's another thing when you're talking, especially with 3, 4, 5-year-olds, right? Or younger. Trying to, after they're all talking, how do you get their attention back, right? So as I'm going through this, I'm gonna be modeling some of those things, right? So 3, 2, 1 usually works. Or the one, if you can hear me, clap once. Have you seen that?
I go 1, 2, 3, look at me.
Okay, so some sort of transitions, okay, because we want our kids to talk, don't we? Mm-hmm. Especially learning language, whatever language, doesn't matter. We want them to have that opportunity to talk. But we also, as teachers, we want it to be quiet like this. We can expect it to be quiet like that. We have to give them some sort of time frame, like when we were going around, I said, okay, we have 30 seconds left. That was a way of, okay, we're gonna get back here and we're gonna get ready to go, okay? So I heard, as I was walking around the room, I heard words like see, so you can see things. And then I kept walking around the room and I heard color. And I heard size. I heard little words like that. So all of those things that we can learn from with our world, our eyes are very powerful. It takes in lots of information, right? So that is one of our senses. What's another sense that we have, that our body has, that we don't need to have external tools? We have a lot of tools within our own body.
Touch.
What was that?
Touch.
Touch. Our hands. Our hands. So when we're touching something, I want everybody to think in their head again. I want you to think of one word, any word, that describes something you've touched. Think of a word that describes something you've touched. Okay, just think about it. Because remember, we're giving that think time for our students, okay? Now, In 10 seconds, I want you to turn to your partner and you say the word at the same time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Zero. Okay. Remember I said I was going to give you 10 seconds? You're probably like, 10 seconds, it only takes 1 second to say the word. But notice, so I'm mixing it up when we're responding to each other. Okay? I gave you 10 seconds, I told you 10 seconds, but it only took 1 second to say it. But I knew there was going to be laughter, which that's what we want in our class, right? We want our classroom to be fun. So there was laughing, there was chuckling, and then you also added other words too. Did you notice that? I only asked you to think of one word, and some of you were like, soft, rough. You know, you just kept going. That's what I intended it to do. Okay? You give them 10 seconds. You give them one word, one thing to do. But then you're going to see some of your kids are going to go, and that's a natural way of differentiating for your kiddos. Okay? All right, so we talked about observation, our eyes. Talked about touch. What's another sense that we have?
Hearing.
Our hearing. Our hearing. Okay, so when we're hearing something, does anybody know how we can hear things? Does anybody know?
Your brain.
Okay, your brain has to register something, right? So yes, your brain is very much part of your hearing.
The vibrations
Who said vibrations?
go through the ear canal to the drum and
That's right. I'm a constructivist here. And so how did you know all of that? Where did you learn all that information?
previous classes and reading it.
Okay, okay. All right, so yeah, it starts with vibration, okay? So we're not gonna go into a huge lesson, but that is a major concept students have to know about sound, right? How to hear it. It's because of vibration. Something is moving, okay? That's all I'm gonna go into that. Okay, what's another one?
Taste.
Taste? Taste, okay. Now, I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna have you think of a food, and your partner is going to give an adjective describing it. So I'm using big words, ain't I? It is called academic vocabulary. If you are using these words, your kids are going to pick up, like what Dr. Talley was saying, whatever your expectations, they're gonna be hearing it, and you're trying to provide them vocabulary as well, right? Okay, so you're gonna think in your head some sort of food, whatever food you want, and your partner is going to give you in one word, an adjective that describes that taste. So what did I ask you? What's that one word? Boys and girls? Adjective. And the adjective describes what it tastes like, okay? All right, you all ready? I'm gonna give you 10 seconds again, but each person. So somebody's gonna be a partner A, somebody's gonna be a partner B, okay? Now you would never do all of these mixes in one day with your kiddos, right? I'm just showing you different ways to have them develop that discourse in your classroom, okay? So who is A? Raise your hand if you're the A. And if you're 3, 2 people can be A, okay? Okay, who's B? And you want your kids to do that, because if you say, okay, do we have the A's and the B's ready? And they're like, yeah, and then they both either stay there staring at each other, or they both are gonna talk at the same time. Okay, so who can tell me what the instructions were? Because we kind of took a little while, because remember, attention span for our little ones. What did I ask you to do?
We have to name a food.
You have to name a food, and your partner has to do what? An adjective. See, now you're using the academic vocabulary, right? Okay. All right, so ready? A is gonna go first, and you're gonna have 10 seconds. You're gonna say it, and your partner has those 10 seconds to give you a word that describes it, okay? Ready? Go. Okay, please, your turn. Switch.
What does it do?
Get my voice back twice. Or do my voice back 3 times. Okay, so did you all, I'm gonna ask A's. Did B do their job? Did they give you an adjective, a word that described that food?
Yes.
Yes? Did you agree?
Yes.
Okay. B's, did A give you one word to describe your food? Or a long sentence thing? Okay. So what sense were we talking about? Taste. Taste. So we've talked about eyes. We've talked about touch. We've talked about hearing. We've talked about taste. What is left?
Smell.
The smell. And we use our nose to smell, right? So when students are little, when kids are little, here's the science that's going to come out for me. Normally they go like this, right? They put their nose in it, right? Okay. We are going to train them to be future what? Scientists. Very dangerous for scientists to stick their nose into something to get a smell, right? Does anybody know the correct way? Yes. So this is what I want you to, if you've never done it, it's called wafting. If you've never done it, I want you to get the bowl of chocolates and pass it around, and you can smell the chocolate without having to do this, or the lemonade, or something else. I want somebody to get something at your table, and I want you to practice waft. The waft. W-A-F-T. Can you smell it? Can you still smell it? Okay. Was anyone surprised that they can still smell it? Yeah, right? Especially your kids. Your kids are gonna be like, I can't smell it, there's a wrapper.
Right.
Right? So, that was a misconception. Misconceptions are that you have to smell like this, put your nose in it. That is not true. You can model the best way to do that, the safety way to do that, called what? I mentioned the word? Wafting or wafting. Tomato, depends on your accent, I guess, right? But it's W-A-F-T, waft or waft, okay? So, again, you're modeling, you're teaching it 5 senses. All of that we just did, that is a lot of information, correct? Okay, so you would normally chunk that, right? So when I show you later, when we get into our curriculum, one meeting is going to be about observation. Another meeting is going to be about another one. So developmentally appropriate. We're adults, so we crammed it in, right, today? But for kids, sometimes it takes them a little bit more. But a lot depends on how much information they get from home, right? Remember we talked about like at home, that you learn a lot at home before you even get into any sort of center or classroom. Okay, the reason why I did that first is because we are going to be using our senses to determine what's in them, what our mystery balloons are. In this bag, there's 5 different balloons, and you're going to use all of your senses except which one? Do you think? Taste. Do we ever want to taste a mystery item? No. And we always had a rule in our classroom, like when we did science, is you do not eat what we're learning with in science. If you do well and you withhold and not taste, especially if you have like M&Ms or Skittles or something that you're doing by sorting by color or things like that, right?
They will eat it.
They will eat it. But if you train them, yes, I said train. If you have to train them, if they don't eat it during class, then at the end of the day, because you can't do it during the school day because of like nutritional policies, right?
Yeah.
You can give them a little something, or you can give them stamps, whatever reward it is. And you know, I'm not a big proponent about giving a lot of rewards, but sometimes for them to initially learn it, That happens with dogs too, right? I'm not calling kids dogs. Let's do that. But so what you're gonna do?
That's right.
This is a sample station, and I have to tell you something really funny. I was like, yeah, I'll get all these bags and because everybody's gonna have a bag to take, but trying to do my fingers are still sore from doing all of the little knots and stuff. So what we're gonna do is everybody is going to get one right in a little bit before you leave. But right now, we're going to have a materials manager. Do you all assign roles in your classroom or in your centers? Yeah. Okay, it's very important to teach them responsibility, right? So I'm gonna assign a role. The partner A, if you were partner A, you're going to be my material manager, okay? So I'm gonna pretend, kind of have been going back and forth, that you're all like 3 and 4-year-olds. Okay, so we're sitting at the carpet. I'm going to model for you exactly what you're going to get at the materials table. So, and they're very visual, right? Okay, so what you're going to get in the back over here on the counter are some items, okay? You are going to get 1 balloon, mystery balloon from each bag. How many bags are back there? Can we see? How many bags are back there? 5. So you're gonna get how many balloons in your bag? 5. You're gonna get 5 from the same bag back there? No. How many are you gonna get from each bag? 1. Okay. And you're gonna get the instructions, okay? So then what I would do, this is something that's really important. If you all have incorporated centers in your classroom, if you do, this is a classroom management part. If you do not show what you need to do in the center, what's going to happen? Chaos, right? So you need to take that time at circle time when you're getting ready to introduce a center. You may probably already do that because obviously you know that there's going to be chaos when you don't, right? So we've all learned the hard way, okay? So you're going to go over it, you're going to model it. So I would go back there and I'd say, you're going to take 1 from here, 1 from here, 1 from here, 1, you know, like that. And then at the materials table, I would leave my model. Your bag needs to look like this bag, okay? So now this is normally, I know this is a center part, but normally this is like when you're going to do an activity, a whole group activity where they're coming back and taking it. Because of our amount of people in the space, and we're just gonna pretend all of these centers are with each partner or trio, okay? So partners A, I want you to tell partner B what you need to grab for your group.
I need to get 1 balloon from each of the 5 bags and a yellow paper. You put them in bags.
If B says, yeah, you got the instructions correct, please go back to our materials table and grab
So I'm the board member of the meeting. So you'll be sitting over
Let me get the real
instructional.
Sweet.
All right. At the end of the day, there's plenty of materials. Everybody can take a center home with you, okay?
I started from kindergarten at NMAEYC Charter School. But before that, I worked with Christina Kent for a long time. And I had parents as yeah.
So let me ask you while we're still gathering those really quick. Why do you think I asked you to talk to your neighbor about what you need to get?
If you both were listening.
To see if you're listening, right? Okay, yeah. So you know exactly what you're doing, because if you're not very clear and you're having somebody check what you need to do, that is going to alleviate. Miss, what do I need to get? Miss, what do I need to get? Or you have a long line of kids waiting to talk to you, right? Or is that, right? Miss, right? So again, I'm sharing some strategies when you're doing like STEM in the classroom, because it's gonna be a busy classroom. It should be a busy classroom, okay? So you want to, have you all ever heard ask 3 before me? Okay, so that's another one. Ask 3 before me. So instead of coming to me as a teacher, you're gonna ask 3 other students, and then they still didn't know, then you kind of, okay, so that's another way. Okay, so what is something else? So you see what's in the bag, and you know your kids. What is something that you think at carpet time we need to discuss?
Don't eat it.
No throwing.
So not eating, no throwing. You have to be explicit in what you can and cannot do, correct? Because if you don't say it, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. They may do it anyway. Exactly. But then at least you can say, didn't I say not to throw it? So this is another I can't promise it's the last classroom strategy, but another big one. Everybody in here is going to be a participant, unless you break a rule. When you break a rule, you will become an observer. That does not mean you're going to go outside the room or in the corner or on another chair somewhere. You're staying there. And we're going to use what sense are we talking about? When you're an observer?
Eyeballs.
Your eyeballs. Are you going to be able to use your hands?
No.
No. Can you use your hearing?
Yes.
Yes. Can you use the sense of smell?
Yes.
Yes. So when you become an observer, you're still getting all of those experiences except for what? The touch. And don't they want to touch? They do. So then you can say, you know what? Okay, I saw you throw that, but I think you
She
learned
did
your
it.
lesson.
She did it
So I'm going to give you a chance, and you're going to become a participant again. And usually after that time, there's no more. Okay? So because these are very tempting to throw, that's why I'm saying, right, you have to do that. Okay, so you have the instructions. They're pictorial. Again, because our kids, a lot of our kids can't read yet, right? So let's look over it. We're still like in our little carpet time. We are going to do what? What's our first thing? Squeeze the balloon. Okay. Then we're going to do what? Shake the balloon. Okay, and then we're going to do what? Smell. And then it says to do something else. Sort. Okay, so when you squeeze the balloon, what sense are you using? The touch, right? You can also use what?
Hearing.
Your sight. You can use your hearing when you're squeezing it. Okay? When you're shaking the balloon, what senses are you using? The touch, hearing, right? And you're always using your sight, right? When you're smelling the balloon. Oh, good job. Boys and girls. Zenobia modeled the most perfect way to smell an object. Can you please show the class? Let me tell you, your kids love it, right? They love to be on stage. They do. So you take those opportunities to do that, because if you don't do that, what's going to happen? They're going to find a way. Yeah. Right? They will find a way anyway. Okay. So she had her moment of fame. Okay. So what you're going to do, the last part says to sort. Sort is when you're going to be comparing something, right? So I'm not going to go into all the details about sorting right now. I'm just going to let you have some free exploration. It says sort the balloons. Now here it says liquid and solid. So I want you to start with that. And as you're doing that, I'm going to be coming around and I'm going to be asking you some questions. Okay? And I also want you to be thinking about, what do you think is in there? Do you think it's a solid or a liquid? And then what do you think it compares to that you already know, right? Okay, so go ahead and you're going to be exploring with your partner. Go ahead and go through each of those balloons.
Okay, so we squeeze the balloon.
Yeah.
Shake it. run away. So it can. Your first instinct is to.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Se pone aquí, pues,
Remember when we're smelling, we're gonna.
Could I get a picture of you?
For every meal, our little ones are.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna teach them to do this.
Yes, and the washing. And
our first instinct is to go like that. Yeah.
That's good. That's very good.
I don't know how to start this.
No, you gotta wait for everybody to serve.
And you can't have it.
It's so easy. Now we have to wait now.
Very I love the way this group is walking. And you're using your side.
I don't like when you speak. I don't like
So I'm gonna walk around and I wanna see how you started them. If you're still observing them, please continue to do that. But my way of seeing if everybody's ready to move on is if you started solid to liquid.
So liquid.
Yeah, there is. Like heavier than water, but it's not. Like there's just like a little bit. But it feels like almost like that staining or liquid starch, or it's not as thick as glue.
Those are great adjectives.
Oh, yes. Flour's kind of like flour's kind of like a solid.
Pero usted sí lo tiene bien sensible. Oh, sí. I think.
Is it a liquid?
You don't think it's liquid?
I think it's a liquid because look, liquid.
You think it's flour?
See, I can squeeze it and it pops up, right? Can you do that with that one?
No, it does feel like a powder in there.
It's
Like a powder. And see, when I squeeze it, it makes those bubbles, right? And when you do that, this is a liquid.
Give me a thumbs up if you've already sorted.
I know a little Spanish.
Thumbs up if you've already sorted, okay? Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, people say that. Yeah,
Okay. Now, another thing, classroom management, right? Now, this is a sensory center, by the way. If I, could have told you that, right? But obviously, you're using all your senses, right? It's a sensory center. It's in the module of properties of matter. So the science behind it is the properties of matter. So one property is if it's a solid, liquid, or gas, but in our younger ones, it's usually solid and liquid first, okay? So you're comparing the properties. When you're sorting, you sorted these over here are solids, These over here are liquids. That's a property. So you would have had these carpet times. Remember we talked about separating all of those? Okay, you would have had a carpet time on looking at solids and liquids and those properties, okay? Remember, this is the center. And when do you incorporate centers in your classroom? After you've given them the instruction, correct? That way they can take what they've learned and they're able to use that, okay? All right, so how many balloons were in the liquid category? Thank you.
One.
One. How did you know that that one would be liquid? What are some ways that you can tell me why you put that one as the liquid? Okay, you can hear the sound? What did it sound like? Like, what does liquid sound like? So I'm gonna keep
Sloshy.
sloshy. Ooh, that's a great adjective. Sloshy. What is sloshy? Can everybody make that sound as sloshy? Okay, so if you didn't know what sloshy was, now you do. Okay? All right. What's another way that you knew it was a liquid?
I squeezed it so I could see it.
Okay, so he squeezed it to where the balloon got thinner, to where he can see inside the balloon. And he can see that it was water. Okay. All right, so we realized that was water, right? Did anybody think it was something other than water? Okay, could have been vinegar. It could have been vinegar. If it was vinegar, what would be the difference? The smell. The smell, right? And I watched you all, I watched you all struggle with the smell, and I allowed that. I didn't give you the hint, but because those balloons are so thick, you're not gonna really get a lot of smell. But you were using all of your senses.
You smell the balloon.
You smell the balloon, and so they all smelled the same, right? So, but what I'm doing in my mind, I'm the teacher, right? I'm observing. I'm getting some formative assessments about how you all are using your senses. I saw everyone now wafting. That was a new vocabulary word. I saw everybody doing that. I saw everybody shaking. I saw everybody doing different things. So I am visually assessing my students, okay? So you're gonna always wanna be doing that, right? Okay, so let's pick, we're just gonna do a couple more real quick. Can somebody guess what one of the other balloons had? Flower? Okay, flower. Can everybody find the one that's like flower? There is one flower. How does the flower feel? Describing it, soft, squishy. Okay. What's that? Thick. Okay, so when you were squeezing it, you kind of feel like it kind of got like it squished down, right?
You can't feel the individual.
Oh, you cannot feel the individual pieces of the flour because it is so fine. Right? But there's beans and rice and there's something else. So everybody find the beans? Can everybody find the beans?
Yes.
Okay, that one was pretty easy, right? It could have been rocks. You might have thought it was rocks, right? Okay. All right, find the rice for me.
I like that one.
Okay, so if we were to look, going back to what you were saying about flour, if we were to put them in order of the size of the particle, how would you group them from smallest to largest? Please do that for me.
Liquid first.
Size of the particle.
The size of the
liquid and the powder.
Of just those three, the flour, the beans, and the rice. Flour. Did you put, so the flour, the beans, and rice, you're gonna put them in order from the size of the from smallest to largest. So we're talking about properties, right? We're using the sensory center, we're talking about properties. The flour is fine. That's the texture. It's fine. Then it goes to coarse, right?
challenging.
your rice, it's like a coarse, kind of gritty, right? And then your beans, you can describe it as bumpy, right? They're bigger sizes. Okay. So this right here was an activity that is a center for sensory within one of our modules. We have 12 modules, properties of matter. So you're teaching all this science, and this is a center. But just like what I did today, you don't have to use all of them as centers. You can use it as a whole class project, an activity if you wanted to, right? And then once you do it as a whole class, you can put it in the center and you can change the materials that you put in the balloons. And it starts all over again, right? You can actually put other things like, that might have like vinegar. You try to see how the vinegar, you see if they can smell the vinegar and do things like that, okay? Shampoo. Yeah, so there's a lot of other things. So you could do it as a whole group like this, and then put it in the center based on your age of your kiddos. If they're really young, I would recommend you do that, like they're 3, 4. So this is one of my favorite centers. The next one is going to be engineering. So I'm going to ask my materials managers that you got your stuff. Please get all those materials and put them back in the bag.
Thank you, materials
Oh, I forgot the other one. Somebody's asking what the other one was.
Yeah.
So, some say sand. What do you guys think? So we have sand, salt, sugar, oh, the lemonade mix. So what is this? What is similar about all those things we just talked about?
The size of
the material, right? The granules. So, and they're all very gritty, right? So I'll tell you what it is because it's a mystery, but if they were to say sand, I would say yeah, because it's matching those properties. You said salt or sugar or the lemonade mix, I would say yeah, that's correct because it's a mystery. When they all have, you were using your senses, they all have that those same properties. But just because I know you're dying to know what's in there, it's sugar. Okay, it's sugar. Okay.
And that was the sand.
Yeah. But if you said sand, I would have accepted it.
Yeah.
Because it feels the same way. Right? So, now we could open the, reveal. So another thing you can do is you can reveal, okay, this balloon had this, what is it? It's sugar, and what's the difference with the sand? They can talk about the color. Again, you don't taste anything in science, right? You don't want them to taste. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna be engineers, okay? And I'm gonna model another one that comes from our module of food sources. And food sources, a lot of kids think that our food comes from Walmart or the grocery store, right? So this whole thing, if you were, we did this at the poster presentation, the question that starts off the whole, there's a engage lesson where it says, where does milk come from? Cow. So some of them they would know it would be a cow, but some again would say the refrigerator. I've heard refrigerator. I've heard the store, all those things. So they have a really neat way of getting the kids to understand where it comes from. They actually pour milk, or you can put water, but you put it in a little glove and you poke holes in the glove. And the students have to come up to the glove and actually milk the udders. Oh. And once they do that, and you later ask them, where does milk come from? They're going to tell you the cow. They're not going to say Walmart or whatever, right? So fast forward that a little bit. We're in our centers. We've already done some of our carpet times, and now we're going to be engineers. Now, engineers have to find ways to solve problems, right? So if we're a farmer and we're growing all these fruits and vegetables and all these other things, how do we get them to the stores? How do we get them to the stores?
The trucks. Gotta pick them.
The trucks, you first gotta pick them, right? So you kind of go through all of that. Yeah. So what we're going to do is I'm gonna so bee people, our partner bees, where's my box? Up there it is. You are now going to be the material manager because kids will always want to go to material manager, right? Yes. You can choose any materials that are in here. You're going to stay in your partner or your trio. And you're going to design an apparatus. Ooh, another big word. You're going to design something to be able to carry all of this fruit from one side of the room to the other side of the room. And that's all. If you meet that requirement, you did what you needed to do. You solved a problem from transporting from one place to another place. So I'm not going to give you any limitations other than has to be for materials from here. So I'm going to show you the materials. And then as a group, because as a part, you're going to come up with one together. Okay? So I want you to be thinking about it. Now, and honestly, with this one, I would do this one as a whole group because it's a lot. Depending on how much time you have to transfer to the station. That's why I'm saying you can use them as centers or you can use them as a separate pull-out activity. You have pipe cleaners. You have popsicle sticks, small ones. Oh, they're not popsicle sticks, excuse me. Craft sticks. Yeah. That's something that I have to try to, okay? The larger ones, you know what those are called? Tongue depressors. You have string, you have rubber bands. You have a stapler in here, but I actually got staplers in your little material bag. You have staplers, you have scissors, you have glue, you have tape, and then you also have your paper, okay? So, I want you all to think about it, your team. What materials are you going to need? And what are you going to design it with? I'm just going to give you, for a sake of time, just a few minutes we're adults, right? So we can kind of think a little bit faster. Okay. As your team, what materials you need, and think of your design. What's your design going to look like? Okay?
I think they're right.
Okay. All of the fruits? Or just I'll give you the fruits at the very end, yes, but you have to try to fit as many fruits in that in your apparatus, in your design.
Do we walk across the room?
You're gonna have to walk across the room from one side to the other with the fruit in your without the all right. And that means less money that I'm going to get as a farmer because it doesn't make it to the store.
If we made a frame with tongue depressors or the crop sticks, and then we made a basket, part the eggs down, pipe cleaners.
I'm seeing this. Can you draw it?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So if you get a frame, you will make the popsicle sticks like this, and we can use tape or even pipe cleaners to glue, yeah. And then you wrap the pipe cleaner right here, and then wrap it right here, and then we can weave it. We can like weave a basket. Take a little bit, like this. And even if we needed to connect two pipe cleaners so that it wouldn't hang down, we can have one on this side, one on this side, and then we can loop it right here.
How about I'll work on a side.
Can you tell me if I'm
Just to dig into that frame.
Yes. Okay, let me show you.
So are you using that idea?
Remember, the goal is for as many, so you're a farmer, you want to get as many as you can. You're going to transport the fruit from one side of the room to the other side. Try not to drop them or anything like that because that's wasting. You're not going to get your money. You can just get it to the store. Sell it to the store. So you're going to build an apparatus to be able to bring your fruit from one side of the room to the other side of the room. So once you have your apparatus created, Then we'll test it, okay? Okay.
If we had a farm and we were we already picked the fruit and now we're trying to take it to the school. How are we gonna get it from our farm to the school?
Okay.
Rubber bands.
Is everybody in agreement with designing?
I'm excited and I like your color choices for our baskets.
Is everybody in agreement with that design?
Yes.
¿Estamos de acuerdo?
Sí, estamos de acuerdo.
Okay.
Since those are in your bag.
Now,
That seems very small. Oh, more smaller. I mean, that was the design, but it's small. But this is what we get.
remember we only like about 5 or 6 samples.
But if we make it deep,
Yeah, we have to make
all right, should we do tape?
As many will fit, the goal is just to transport from one side to the other.
We can design how many
Okay.
1 to 3 or 4.
Okay, okay. So I'm gonna start taping this and see if we can get it kind of stabilized.
Yeah.
I think the tape is gonna be our best bet, yeah. Yeah, so this, side of the frame will be with the tape. I mean, if you can-
And you're already testing it. You're testing its durability, right? Is it gonna withstand that weight, right?
This is, that was my first
Really light.
Are they?
So,
Yes. Plastic.
yeah, it's plastic. It's very, very light. So, you don't have to
I don't need to make it easier.
You can, however you design it to make it go from one side of the room to the other side of the room, that's the only goal.
These one goes maybe like that. Oh, yeah, you're smart, come on. Yeah.
Pero queremos que va
Now I just.
Yours would seem pretty good.
I can't wait to see it. I tell you.
I don't think so. I might be to make up
We get wood tape. Well, that would take it from one side of the room to the other. Why would you not let it? Why would you tell them no, that is not a good idea? What is the reason?
Kinda, I like how we have it, but.
Remember, we're farmers, we're trying to get from our farms to the store. Like that into our
All around,
and then we took it down.
Well, I started doing like a spider.
Yes, I tried to take that.
And so I I thought that it was gonna look really center, you know.
But maybe it's better like
But I like the creativity of it kind of just hanging.
Yeah, so
And
what
the-
is
and-
that,
and
like,
the-
maybe we would wrap it and then
yes,
put it in and then. Or.
Sí, tiene que ser más largo, yo creo.
Yeah, from corner to corner, and that makes the X on the bottom.
Oh, now we
There you go. It's like a pocket.
I can look some pipe cleaners
Yeah, that'd be
together for
great.
you.
Yes.
That way I can aid in the production of our backs together. Hers?
Pero esto está muy mojado ya.
Oh, I like the colors that we chose. It's beautiful.
We have already. Need more.
Okay, we have one group that is already ready.
Holy.
Okay, so because you all are already ready, I'm gonna let you test your apparatus. From here. Yeah, so we have one group, I'm just gonna have everybody look real quick. They're gonna test their design. I already put the bag of all the fruit inside their apparatus, and so we're gonna go ahead and walk the runway.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pass it on to somebody else to see if they can figure it out.
Hey, everybody else, are you ready? Are you ready to test yours? No. Okay. Are you ready to test yours? Okay. Okay, we have one more that's ready. Oh, you want to wait? Two more. Okay, so everybody, let's see this next group. Go ahead and go down the runway. Do the Miss America wave.
Whatever.
Okay, good job. You all set?
We need some data in order to.
Well, if we have time like that, we can weed
You are right. Center. Go ahead and fill your bag. You ready? Okay, we have another one. We have another one.
Oh, look
Do you all want to go first because you're testing? You guys are ready?
I think we're ready.
Okay, let me have them since they're already getting set up.
Okay.
Okay, so check this one out. At first I was like, I can't wait to see what you're gonna make with that, but now I get it. Now I get it. Okay, here, I'll help it along here. Okay, so we're gonna get started. Okay. So here's the farm, and we picked.
Yes, I had to deviate from our color scheme.
You didn't have to know all this. Okay, so how are you gonna make it go from the farm to the store?
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Wait, do it again, I didn't see.
This is very important because kids will get really upset, right?
They start crying.
They'll start crying. Now, what's really important about engineers is the design process, right?
Yeah.
So you had a plan, you executed it, but once you test it, if it doesn't work, what part failed? So let's talk about this. Let's all together talk about this. Let's help. What failed in this design so they have time to redesign it to try it again?
It wasn't smooth enough. We should use a string.
Okay, choice of materials would help.
The connections with you do pipe cleaners, when you wrap them around each other, they slip off. So I would always twist mine like this and then twist them together.
Okay, so team, you have two examples that you can go back and redesign your apparatus. So go ahead and go back and redesign. We have another group that's ready.
So here's my idea. If it doesn't work,
Okay, everybody, let's watch this group. Y'all ready? Real quick.
If you put this on and it seems like it has too many holes, we can
All
kind of.
right, looks like it's holding up. It sure does.
So that they can fall out.
To the Miss America way. Woo, good job, good job. Okay. Good? Okay, that's okay. So the rest of your team is even.
So that's a good idea. You're smart.
Nice try. Okay, so they redesigned. Here we go. Let's see if we can get our, what's the technology in this part right here? And the level, right? And then estírela. Did you notice how they're saying go higher? What force do they already have some sort of understanding about? Gravity. They acquired that already, right? Okay. You want to try one more time? Okay. So remember, you're having to go back and redesign what happened. Okay, now we're gonna go higher. And it's tighter. They're making the string tighter. Okay, there you go. Keep going. It's just one that you've lost. You still want to get paid. All right, good job. Okay, we have another group. Ready?
She's gonna start.
Yeah, so walk down the runway.
Women ranchers.
Awesome design, good job. Okay, who else is ready? We have another group ready? Okay, you group. And you all,
Right.
okay, here's another one.
I don't need it. You don't need it.
Okay, here's another one.
Well,
Everybody look at this design. It's holding pretty sturdy there.
yay!
Yeah, it's made into this. Good job, good job.
Add a little reinforced bottom there.
Very nice. Okay, I'm gonna ask you, let's just transport it over here.
Oh, he's white?
All right, here's another design.
Oh.
It's a team effort here.
Team effort, that's right. Is it serving the purpose?
Woo-hoo.
Yes, it
Good
is.
job.
Yes, it is. Hey, good job, good job. Are you all ready? Okay, let's just dump these into yours.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you, ladies. Oh, all ready? There you go. All right, here's another one.
It's holding.
Oh, look at that. Did it make it over there? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Good job. Good job. They made it. Now, the first time, did you hear she said, I lost a strawberry? So if they were to go back, if you were carrying a whole bunch of strawberries, how would you redesign your?
It would need more,
A denser weave.
Okay, a denser weave,
Yes.
or you want to fill in those holes, right? Okay, okay, good job. Now, real quick, I just want to, after your kids do this, notice the variety of designs. And did you all notice, I don't know if you're going to admit to it or not, but at the very beginning, what I noticed is some of you already had like a plan in your mind. And you're like, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And others were looking around the room like, what are you doing? Right? It's okay for your kids to do that, right?
This is what I was.
So,
My brain too.
and then we talked about, I think with this group over here, we talked about your choice of materials is very important, right? So, oh, thank you. So one of the things, again, if you decide to do this at a station, at a center, you can do that. If you decide to pull it out and do it as a whole group, and then, oh, thank you, I'm getting all this food now. And then you go back and you say, okay, now you've had that experience, now go and build something else. That you're setting them up, you're scaffolding them, you're setting them up for success. Oh, and some more. Any more? Any more? Trick or treat? Okay. So one last thing that we would do is we would have kids do like a show and tell. Remember show and tell?
Yeah.
But it's not my turtle from home or whatever. This show and tell is telling the class why you chose what materials and how you designed it, the reasoning behind. Because remember, the problem was, how are you going to get your fruit from one side, from the farm, to the store, okay? If you also want to add, if you wanted to, for a student to like, as they're doing, if you want to keep doing this kind of thing over and over, you can start charging, like making little like dollar Monopoly money or something for the materials. So you can say you only have so much money. And remember, for them, it's really, the concept of money is really hard, right? Other than the one-to-one correspondence, right? So you wouldn't want to use like the 1s, the 5s, the 10s, whatever. It's like, how many ones would this one be? How many ones would this one be, right? The one-to-one correspondence, that's what they're learning, right? So you could take it to that level to differentiate for your students who need to have that extra increased level of a challenge, okay?
Amy, one thing I'd like to add is the fact that you brought up the word failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a word that most parents, most teachers, and just about everyone in society avoids the use of that word.
Yeah.
But what we do is, if we use the word from a very early age, making it be something that is acceptable, because what happens is reflection of what went wrong, and from that point of failure, how do I improve? That actually can expand into just about everything. But we have to feel comfortable with it not being perfect the first time. That's what engineering is about, is trying to perfect the plan so that you have one that's effective and efficient.
Well, that goes for everything in STEM as well. We have to get used to not succeeding the first time to continue trying and continue working at it.
That trial and error and learning from your errors is such an important lesson that we don't let our children have anymore.
It's that growth mindset that we have to teach our kids. That is a life skill. That, you know, especially when we're working with younger kids, we have a lot of responsibility on our shoulders, right? More so than high school teachers, because, You know, high school teachers, they have their place too, right, to get them ready for college and stuff. But if we're, like we were talking about manners, you have to teach them manners. You have to teach them all these things. So you need to teach them that growth mindset, that it's okay to fail. What's important is, what did we learn about it? Just like you all had that you had to have tested it and it failed, but you found out, okay, there's another way to do this. And then you felt more successful, right? So if we kept giving you more and more opportunities to do it, then you would get to that final woo-hoo, right? And I don't want to misquote this, but I want to say, the invention of the light bulb, it took over 1,000, is that right?
Yeah.
1,000 trials to get the light bulb to where it's at today. If we had someone, and who was that?
Thomas Edison.
Yeah, Thomas Edison. If Thomas Edison was like, oh, well, I can't get it, forget it. Where would we be today?
Without lights.
Without lights. So dark. Probably, but there would be other people that would have stepped in, right?
Like the phone, like the telephone in a Graham?
Yeah, Alexander Graham with the telephone. So you need to be able to give those examples of never giving up. You never want to give up, right? It's that, okay, we failed. What are we going to do? How are we going to fix it?
We call that persistence or persistence.
Right. So, yes, sir.
We still have ours to show you.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's
Okay, we were late
okay. They're waiting for the spotlight. Let's see. All right. Go ahead and come over here to the scroll farm.
Go.
Okay, it's still good. It's still serving. Okay, so let's
Can you have any
see.
problems?
They didn't go down the essential part of the run. What run? What am I trying to say?
Good, thank you.
Wrong way.
Oh.
Going down. Ooh, look, she's even spinning it like, see? Good job, good job. I'm sorry, did everybody have a chance to do it? Everybody did? Yes.
Can I just mention one interesting thing here is the importance of prior experiences in order to support this type of projects. So this group that have their hand weave basket over here, we were trying to do the same thing over here. Okay? And my brain does not have a frame of reference. So I'm like, well, it looks like a spider. So, but I want to know, how did you know how to do that? Your basket.
Because fruit, the green
plastic
baskets, the fruit used to come in.
Strawberry baskets.
Strawberries baskets.
Yes.
You're reaching into your prior experience of seeing the fruit basket and that pattern and that design, and you're trying to recreate it. So my brain could not, I didn't have anything to reference. Another interesting thing is, before we can be able to manipulate these tools, we have to have the skills and the concepts. So in order to make a bag, we have to know what a bag is, and we also need to know the skills. We need to know how glue works, and we need to have the manual skills to cut scissors and put things together. So long before we get to even this type of project, we have to practice all of that leading up to that. So,
Yeah, and it's very important, like what you were saying about those, that prior knowledge. If they don't have that prior knowledge, and that's why it's very important, just like when you're going into a center. That's why for this one, I did pull this one out, like when I would train my teachers, and we did it as a whole group, because we were there all together, everybody was doing it, because as a teacher, and there's other stations, we want them to be successful. The center should be reinforcement of their learning, correct? But because this one has so much involved in how, am I gonna use glue? Am I going to use tape? Have they had experiences to use difference like that? So having it be as a whole group, you can do that. And then you can say, okay, now these were light. Now we're going to construct something that has to carry such and such. Then that's where it's much better, like at the center time, where you can go ahead and continue that, right? But that's very true. And what you were saying about those strawberry ones, do you all remember those? Do you still have those in New Mexico here?
I don't even know.
They come in plastic now.
They come in plastic now, yeah, but I remember as a little girl, the little green baskets. Yeah, so some of those, you know, gosh, yeah, but it's very important, that frame of reference that you were saying. So these were just 2 samples, okay, but what I wanted to show you is how hands-on this is, okay? Our curriculum it's grounded in that constructivist theory where we learn by doing and by exploring and discovering. Even if they didn't have had previous experience with this, it's giving them that opportunity to have those experiences now, okay? So, you know, a long time ago, not a long time ago, a couple years ago, I had this conversation with this one teacher, and she was very adamant about, she doesn't have time to teach science. I just don't have time. I have to do this. I don't have time to teach science. So it's a preference in a way for a teacher. I mean, those are your guidelines. You have to teach those, right? But what happens behind closed doors is what happens behind closed doors, right? So the administrator knew about this situation, because that's why I got called in, right? To go try to help this teacher. And so it's baby steps. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I'm going to show you what our curriculum is. Think of it as a grocery store. I just finished going to the grocery store. Think of it as a grocery store. There's a lot of stuff there. You pick and choose what you feel comfortable with to start with. And Dr. Terry Talley is going to close the session with some research about a district that did just that. They took the centers that they were typically used to doing, incorporated that, and then their science instruction, the amount of time that they use increased dramatically. And so that's going to be how we're going to wrap this up. But I just want to take maybe like 5 minutes just to kind of show you a little bit, because those cards that you filled out, the reason I want to show you is because I want you to know how to get in there once you get your access. Okay, so there's about 5 minutes. Were we able to get in there?
Yes, I don't know how to change it over to the screen. That's my, so.
Oh, Kendra left.
Did Kendra leave already?
So I would have to be able to pick maybe start share and start another one.
There it is.
Whoa.
Yay! Yay! Okay.
Here's a chair.
I'm good. I'm gonna stand. Okay. So when you get your preview, okay, you're going to see in the blue bar all those things. You're going to click on scopes. Scopes. Think of scopes as your unit or your theme. That's your concept that you're going. Okay. And you're going to, anything that says EE, that's going to stand for Early Explorers. So we have a whole scope, and they're about a 2 or 3 week period. Again, depending on your scope and sequence, how much time you have to teach things. You have the 5 senses. There's one just on the 5 senses. So because every center has a sensory table, and they have to use their 5 senses, I highly recommend that's one of the first ones you do, because you need to have the 5 senses to be able to do those sensory centers that are within each of the modules, okay? Properties of matter, that's the one, the sensory center that we got, the balloon, the mystery balloons. There's one on forces, objects in the sky, sun's heat, weather patterns, caring for our earth, life cycles, food sources. The engineering one came from the food sources, okay? Habitats, food as energy, and basic needs. Those are your 12 early childhood modules, okay? So I'm going to take you into, go into habitats, because we haven't done anything with life science yet. So when you see that, you're going to see the next row right here. You have essentials, ramp up, round up, wrap up, keep it up, and you read aloud. So in our lesson design, we follow a pattern to where you're going to hook the kids. You're going to get their interest, okay? When you're going to get their interest, that's the ramp up, okay? Those are the ones I was telling you about where, go ahead and click it. So you have your introductory engage and you have your daily engages. You have 12 days of what we would do at carpet time. That's the science instruction. that happens in your ramp up. I don't want to be in this way, okay? I want you to click, if you don't mind, please, to the Science Rock song, because in an early childhood classroom, I truly believe there needs to be music in the classroom, because that's going to help them acquire the language, right? So when you go here, go ahead and let's show that. I don't know if the audio is going to get any feedback or not. I don't know if the audio will work. Can we make it full screen? Oh, we're getting feedback. Okay, well, the feedback is kind of bad, so. It doesn't, how do we hear it though?
The sound should be coming out. Oh, I know, I got it.
Okay. Well, while they're getting that, notice how the words are lighting up as they're singing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's helping the students understand that words carry meaning, right? That's one of the basic things in early childhood that we need to teach them, is that words have meaning. Okay, so while we're still doing that.
We all look like that when we're trying to figure out the computer, don't even pretend.
So, transition time. I would always we would put in music for transition. If it's cleanup, whether it's getting ready to go to lunch, coming in the morning, whatever that theme is that we're doing, like this one's habitats, we put the song up. The more that they hear the song, they're gonna start learning the words, right? And believe it or not, when they get older and they are having to take a test, if they have music set aside to it, they're going to remember the content. So how many times have we got into this? It's kind of coming in and out.
Yeah.
When we turn on the radio, haven't heard a song in 20 years or 10 years. We still remember the words, right? Because it's set to a rhythm. And so there's a lot of research about incorporating music in your classroom with content. So that's one of the things that we have. Okay, we're good. They got the idea. Okay, so every module has music to go with it, okay? Okay, so that's your engage. That's the hook that's getting the kids ready, okay? That's called the wrap up. The next one, when we get to it, is round up. That's where you're gonna find all of your centers. Every module, like this one in Habitats, they have 16 centers. Are you going to incorporate 16 centers in your classroom all at the same time?
No.
No way, right? You're gonna pick and choose which ones you wanna incorporate. So you're gonna go through all of those, okay? That's your round up part. Then you have wrap up when you're doing your assessment. So we had a lot of fun here, right? But how do we know that the students got it? You have to assess them. Not an ABC multiple choice kind of thing. We have two ways to do that. We have one where it's a small group and you have conversations with them. And then there's also some that have like pictures or something that they have to do. And then you can take a grade. If you need to take grades, it's up to you. I don't know what levels you all are at. But remember when I was telling you how I was walking around and I was noticing that you all were using the wafting and you were all using your skills? There's a spreadsheet that you can put your student's name and you can take those assessments, those anecdotal notes, things that you need to do for assessing your kiddos. The last one is called Keep It Up. Keep It Up is that sustaining section in your room, like weather. Once you do the weather, that's gonna always be there, right? Something that you're gonna keep it up for longer than those 2 or 3 weeks, okay? So that's also an option. So I just wanted to show you all of those. The read aloud, you have a PDF version on the site, but we also have the big books. And what's really nice about these is that they're paired readers. You have a nonfiction and a fiction, both talking about habitats. So you start to introduce to your kids, what are some elements that you find in a fiction book and what elements do you find in a nonfiction book? And how do you know when you're reading, when you pick up a book, if it's a fiction or a nonfiction? One of the ways is that in a nonfiction, there's actual photographs, right? In a nonfiction, in a fiction, there are usually like drawings, right? So that's one way to distinguish. So am I still doing science? Yes, but can I do it during reading time?
Yes.
Definitely. What are some other things that you notice on the nonfiction book that the fiction book does not have?
Vocabulary.
Vocabulary words, and they're bolded, right? So they're telling you these are important words. So little things like that that you can also show. It doesn't have to be within your science time, because sometimes in pre-K you don't have a specific science time, but you can incorporate it in your reading time as well. Okay, but you also have these. Now these come in English and Spanish. There's on your left-hand side, sorry, right-hand side. It says Ver en Español. You click on it, and your PDF books, it's like a PowerPoint, is in Spanish as well. Okay. So I get a lot of questions about, is everything come in Spanish? Well, for early childhood, they can't read a lot anyway, right? I mean, you're teaching them that. So a lot of it is the teacher. So the teacher's instructions are in English because it's the teacher doing it, right? There is a parent letter that goes out before to let your parents know that's in English and Spanish, what you're going to be doing. And then there's a wrap-up letter for your parents as well. In the Essentials tab, there is also a vocabulary cards that comes in English and in Spanish. Some of you all, going back to the song, you have the lyrics that are there. The lyrics can be put in your poetry, right? And you're teaching rhyming, right? You're teaching all of those, so what word rhymes with this word? Or you can have them search for certain letters, that they're learning for that week or what have you. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a little bit, I don't want to take too much more of your time, I just want to give you a little bit of what it looks like, so when you get it, you know how to navigate through it, okay? So that was the purpose of the card. You'll get a 30-day preview of the curriculum. And of course, if you are interested in learning more about it, or you want to get it for your school or for your daycare, whatever, that's when you would contact me and I can help you get that. Yes, ma'am.
This one is similar to our curriculum, because we use Tools of the Mind, and we use the creative curriculum.
Okay.
The creative curriculum is mostly based, but Tools of the Mind is almost exactly like this. Everything has to be. And I'm a dual language teacher, so I have to teach
in English. Yes. We do have a district in El Paso that does the dual language. And so what they did is, because the teachers they wanted to have those questions in Spanish. That's something that I've already talked to our company about, is even though it's not that we're giving it to the students like copies in Spanish, but sometimes we need to provide those questions crafted in Spanish for the teacher to ask those questions in a high level way, right?
Yeah.
Somebody have their hand up over here at this table.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we get an individual teacher access to the curriculum, or does it have to be the whole school?
It doesn't, okay, so it's in the middle of those two.
Okay. Okay.
It can't be just one teacher.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be the whole school. It has to be that grade level. So like if you're at a public school, so I'll give you some different scenarios. If you're at a public school and you're a pre-K teacher, then the pre-K teachers of that school would have access. But because we don't charge it by adult usage, we charge by student, cost per student.
Okay.
And it's only $5.95 per student. That's it. So every pre-K student in that school needs to have access. If you're at a daycare, it would be all the students in that age range that you're going to be doing, like Kirkland Air Force Base. Anybody here from Kirkland Air Force Base? Okay, so the Child Development Center in Kirkland Air Force Base is using our curriculum. And so they purchase it for each of the classrooms that they have. And they have a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. And so what they're doing is they're looking through the 12 and they're saying which of these are going to be for our 3-year-olds class, which of these are going to be for our 4-year-olds class, and which of these are going to be for our 5-year-olds class. But it was a per student thing. So if you have questions like that about how that would work in your scenario in the field where you're at, that's where at the end, I'm going to be here. We can discuss that a little bit more. Okay. But any questions about navigating? It's really easy. The little bar, you just kind of go through it. Again, think of it as a grocery store. Don't get overwhelmed thinking you have to teach everything. We want to make sure you have a plethora of stuff to choose from. And you start with what you feel comfortable with, and then you build as far as you need. The idea behind having 16 centers is because we want to keep our classroom centers fresh, new, and exciting. Because that's when kids are going to learn, and that's when it's gonna make our lives easier as far as handling behavior issues.
Probably those 16 centers would encompass a range of abilities as well, so that way certain centers would fit the kids in this group.
Yes.
And you would wanna like scaffold them maybe?
Yes, there's that differentiating that you can build into that. That's some of them already built in that way.
Okay.
Like for example, that's why I always like to use the engineering one, because a lot of times teachers like, my kids, they don't have that frame of reference. How can I have them do that? Well, that's why in my preference, because of my experience working with the little kids, you want to give them that, whereas it's a whole class thing, and then set it in the center. And then give them like a different scenario, but at least you're building that success for them, okay? So yeah, so think of it when you go in there, don't get overwhelmed. Think of it, what would work in my classroom or in my center.
What grade is that you show us?
This one goes from age 3 to 1st grade. You can go up to 1st grade. If you're at a school setting, we do have a K-12 curriculum. And with that one, most everything is already done in Spanish for you. Like if you're in a kinder class, anybody a kinder teacher? So we have kinder, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. You said 3rd grade goes up to early childhood here in New Mexico, right? So we do have a K-12 curriculum, very similar to the ramp up model, the up model, but it's in the 5E model. Engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. So we have that. So that's something, if you're interested on your card, I'll make sure to dig it back out and we can give you access to your kinder and 1st grade if you don't want this one. But if your school and your classroom is center-based, this is the one that would work for you because it's more of the center-based, okay? The other one is still very much hands-on, but it doesn't have the centers, okay? So that's up to you on how you all want to do that. And at the end, I'm gonna give you all my cards so you can contact me. And I can come out to your facility and even share with your administrators or other teachers, and we can go from there, okay? But our goal, remember, do you remember what my goals were? There was 2 goals for you all today.
Do you know what STEM is?
What is STEM? So Dr. Terry Tully is gonna wrap that up. So your ticket out the door is you need to be able to communicate with somebody what STEM is. And what was the second goal that I gave you all?
Use what you've learned.
Yeah, how are you going to incorporate it, right? So you're walking away with the center already done, ready to go. We're gonna give you that access, but if you cannot wait and you really wanna go in there tonight, on our website, there are 3 of the 12 modules in its entirety there for you to look at if you like. And it's gonna be on my business card, but I'll give it to you. It's called accelerate-learning.com. It's on my business card. So if you wanna go home tonight, you're super excited, you want to look at those 3 that are there, you can go through there. Well, it takes a couple of days for our corporate office to set you up as a preview. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Dr. Terry Talley, and she's going to wrap up about research about implementing STEM in your preschool classrooms.
Great job, Amy. Yeah, you know your kids will. So if you would, please look in your handout, look in the file folder, and in your handout are some things I want to share with you. And I know that you're not going to sit and read them today, and you may not sit and read them for a while. But as you are beginning to determine if the programs that you have and that you're using do or do not incorporate STEM, you might want to have something as ammunition to take with you as you're asking for your administration to consider perhaps allowing you to choose this as a resource, okay? So one of the things that I would like to share with you, first of all, are the standards that are guiding what should be happening in an early childhood classroom based on, first of all, how children learn science. It's a research book that was put together by the National Academies Press. They are the National Science Foundation. They are a think tank of educators, engineers, scientists, and government officials who are concerned about the responsiveness of education right now. Is education that we're providing our students going to provide for them what they need as they enter the world to become economically independent? to be able to have their life dreams, to have a home and a family, a car, and those things that make them happy. And so as they're looking at that, they begin, first of all, with the early learners. Then they look at how the mind changes as a child matures. Their section on early learners says that one of the most unrecognized facts is that pre-K, let's say 2-year-olds through 5-year-olds, have an amazingly sophisticated way of thinking and reasoning. Mm-hmm. And we don't give them credit for that. Although they don't have the verbal language to tell you what they're thinking, their thinking is very sophisticated. They also said that a child builds his knowledge base from the natural world. He learns and he begins to start observing and he looks for patterns. His brain wants patterns. And if he doesn't see the beginning of a pattern, but he may see the end, his mind is looking for those steps that say, yes, this is valid or not. Not that he can verbalize that, but that is what his brain or her brain wants to have happen. We also, if we, in our education and as parents, our experiences we provide for them, help them to understand, to continue to ask them to share with you what they've learned. They're not going to have that sophisticated language to tell you to begin with. But as they're in the bathtub taking a bath, and they're watching that this sinks, and this floats, and this stays down longer, but it pops up, you give them something else and you say, will this do the same thing? Will it pop up or won't it pop up? Are these two going to do the same? And act surprised and help them to begin then to continue with that exploration, because that's how they're going to be able to begin to start linking it to those things that are advanced science knowledge. Wrong way. So one of the things that we found is that, are you familiar with the education theorist Piaget,
Yeah.
Jean Piaget? His theory said that the brain matures in a certain sequence, and it actually matures in a sequence that we can place numbers against. They found that that theory no longer applies. The more experiences that you provide a child, that maturation happens more quickly. Spatial orientation, size proportion, the ability to visualize and predict through actions abstract patterns and cause and effect. The baby in the high school chair will drop things to the floor and look for them, but they somehow reappear because mom puts them back. And then the next time they drop them and mom's not there, they don't reappear. And so they're beginning to figure things out in that way. The more experience they have with that, the sooner they start to develop that reasoning themselves with cause and effect. Piaget says that the label used to be at 5 years, students begin to start moving from concrete to abstract. We're finding it's much earlier, when students are given lots of opportunities to mess around with things, given a world to investigate and explore without boundaries. Also, that cognitive common ground to build more scientific understanding, when they get the verbal ability, they'll begin to start asking you the whys that are daunting. But it's because they truly want to know. And they want to build that bridge between what they've seen and observed and what they're trying to predict. One of the simple ones that maybe I can give you some example are solid objects. Babies have learned that two objects cannot fit in the same place. Do you know that we wait until students are in high school before we actually discuss that with them? Where they have the ability at a very early age to be able to articulate and explain to you why that can't happen. But because Piaget said they're not developmentally ready, we don't approach it. But think of how many things in your classroom you could make available to students to just mess around with that. Gravity. How gravity affects ways that they sink and they float. Do you ever ask your students, find me 2 things that are the same? Not just, oh, look at that, it sinks, or oh, that's floating, but can you find 2 that are the same, that act the same way? They can do that. Then being able to form that cognitive ground that's going to lead to first grade. So what we found out, we worked with a large district in Central Texas who had a well-advanced preschool program with both Montessori and traditional preschool. 1,100 students were in the program. It was based on economic need and at-risk families, if they were not English language in the home, or if they were from a low socioeconomic status. That was their qualifiers to be in their program. There were many students in that district who did not qualify for the program. The teachers were given an opportunity to work with STEMscopes through our Early Explorer program. And what they found was that when you start comparing the Head Start program, the state standards, and the national science standards that are the foundation for STEM, the teachers became more and more engaged in science in the classroom. The teachers became excited about it, and it became the mainstay of their content. In the Roundup program, the Roundup portion, with the centers that were based in science, it increased their science time from around an average of 2 to 5 minutes per day to actually 36 minutes a day. And over 180 school days, those children had exposure to more than 10 hours of science knowledge and application. When you consider 2 hours a day for 180 school days, 360 minutes of science time, compared to a program that was centered in science, it made all the difference. So you would say, why would we care? Why would we care? Is there any evidence that that made any difference? And why do something if you don't have evidence to show that it's impactful? So we had a quantitative follow-up study. Describe for me students who did not attend the Head Start-based preschool. Describe their home environment. Talk to the people next to you. What do you think the difference was between the students who were in the Head Start preschool program and those that were not? What's the difference in those student populations? What would be the characteristics that would differ?
Head Start requires families to engage the students, so the families are involved in the learning process that happens. And they're not in Head Start, they just pick up the kids and take off. Except for just bringing the kids.
So you can check it out. I think
If you would turn to page 10 in the handout, page 10 in the handout. When you consider those parents who are affluent or are not qualified for Title I funding, which is free and reduced lunch, where the English language is native in their home, education has a very high priority. And the conversation with children on a regular basis involve the preparation for school. Alphabet, numbers, colors. They take them places. They share with them things that are not part of the regular lives of children whose parents live in poverty or are not having a focus on education because they are earning a living and keeping food on the table for their children. English language learners tend to not, and I'm going to probably be telling you things that you know more about than I do, but English language learners, as they're concentrating on the acquiring of language, they have rich experiences, but they're not validated because they're not in the language that is being used in the classroom or socially. So they may know those things, but they don't know how to put the label on them in a way that they're appreciated. So as you look at this list, this data is pretty interesting. So this group of students were the ones who actually were in the Head Start pre-K program that used the ramp up process. These were students who did not participate in that pre-K program. And you'll notice from those percentages, the difference in race, the difference in who participated in free and reduced lunch, the difference of those students who were identified as bilingual or ESL. Do you see the differences in the groups? These two groups were tested using an evaluation that showed interest and abilities in science, curiosity and interest in science. It was given throughout their kindergarten year. 60% of the students who were in the early Explorer program scored highest as a passing rate than those students who did not participate, who typically are from higher socioeconomic status and English language as their native language. These students being in the same kindergarten classroom. Free and reduced lunch program. There's a significant difference in their science knowledge. A significant difference in their science level curiosity. This is the advantage you want. This is the reason why a preschool program based in science and STEM is so important. Because these are the children who are underrepresented in college populations, in STEM careers, and in STEM programs. Because they didn't have the background to have that leg up or that step up to get into those programs when it mattered most. Because they were always behind and they were struggling to catch up. Yes?
And looking at it, I noticed that some of them it's the opposite, where students who, I'm looking at special education and African Americans and even whites, where it's higher percentage of those who
did not.
Who got, is it, so it's based on higher scores? Is that what it is?
Yes, we're looking at the higher scores. So it wasn't applicable in all cases.
Right.
But it was applicable in those two programs, English language learners and low socioeconomic status. The Head Start is actually pointed towards, right?
Okay.
So the programs that truly make a difference for students entering into STEM fields when they go into high school and when they go into college is because they don't feel behind, and they have never been behind from the start. Okay? In your handout, it's in graph form to show you that that change is consistent. So if you feel you want to read it and you need some evidence for the basis of why this happened, it's here in the bit. Any other comments or questions? Would you think there would be value?
Yeah.
In what way?
It just an increase in engagement. You know, all of this is, they don't have to sit still. They have to listen to the instructions, but then they're able to experiment on their own afterwards.
It's that hands-on inquiry. It's that curiosity and inquisitiveness. Amy, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Okay, so if you didn't have a chance, as you were working on your little carrying containers, if you finished earlier, I was telling you to go ahead and come up and get a sample center to take back with you. If you didn't have that chance, I ask that you go ahead and do that before you leave. Do you want to do the raffles? I am giving my card out. Down here at the bottom is the website where you can go and get the 3 modules already, like tonight. My contact information is here, so if you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me. And remember what our ticket out the door is you're going to tell somebody, you could be doing that right now, tell somebody, turn to your neighbor, if you were in an elevator like Dr. Terry Talley was, and you have explained what STEM is, if they say, you know, mention something about STEM, how would you explain STEM to someone in an elevator speech? Okay, so think about it, just like our process. See how we're processing? Our second language learners take twice that long to process, right? Because they're hearing it in one language and they're having to translate it. So that think time is very powerful. So think about it. And then after we do the raffles, then you're going to turn and give each other your elevator speech of what STEM is, okay?
Alejandra, Congratulations. Veronica, Olamide. And I'll take my shoes off.
Oh, I thought you were going like this because you.
No, I-
I was here.
Well, I can have a fan.
Thank you. All right, are you guys ready?
Ready to tell your part of your elevator speech?
Remember those 2 criteria that had to do with engineering? Remember those ones?
It was like fortune teller.
Just go quickly, if you're looking for your contact training certificate, that will be emailed to the email where you registered. So look for that in your email, it will come on Monday.
Thank you.
When you feel confident that you have your elevator speech ready, that's gonna be on you. I'm gonna respect that. But I just want to thank you all very much for spending a Saturday afternoon with us. I hope that you walk away with a wealth of understanding of what STEM is and excited to incorporate STEM in your pre-K classroom. So I just want to thank you again for being here. Please don't forget to take your sample sensory center if you haven't done so already. And I'm just gonna ask if you don't mind just kind of like picking up all the materials manager that picked up I think it was Carter B. If you can put all the materials like extra pipe cleaners and stuff like that back in that little kit, I would greatly appreciate it. And I wish you all a wonderful summer.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the people online. Thank you.
Yes, nice to meet you. I knew you should yeah, there's a lot of the families are language.